Welcome back to Life's Chillin'. My name is Avital, and this week's Parshat is Parshat Balak. Balak was the king of Moab at the time of this week's Parsha, so while the Jewish people were in the desert. And Balak realized how vast of a nation the Jewish people were, and he became afraid of them. And so he decided he had this great idea that he was going to hire a prophet to curse the Jewish people so that they would not continue to be so successful and thrive in the way that they have been thriving. And so he sends men to request the presence of Balaam, of the prophet, that Balaam should come and go ahead to curse the Jewish people. Now, Balaam is only able to say exactly what it is that God tells him to say. And he does say that to these men. He says, "If Balak will give me his house full of silver and gold, I cannot transgress the word of Hashem, my God." So he's only able to say exactly what it is that God tells him to say. First, God tells Balaam not to go with these men. So the servants of Balak return to him and say that Balaam will not go with them. So Balak, what does he do? He sends the servants back and he asks them again. Now this time, God is a little bit vague, unclear whether he's prohibiting Balaam from going with them or not. And so Balaam saddles up his donkey and tries to go with the servants of Balak. And this is a really interesting story, what happens. I did speak about it in more detail 2 years ago on my channel. I'll leave the link in the video below. But Balaam, he saddles up his donkey and he begins to journey. First, the donkey of Balaam, he senses something, which I'll describe a little better in a minute, and he veers off the road, off the path that they were going, into a field. And Balaam, who's very confused by this, strikes the donkey and tries to keep going. And the donkey, again, this is the second time, he finds like this wall and he pushes Balaam up against the wall and he presses Balaam's leg into this wall. And again, Balaam can't figure out what's going on. He hits his donkey and tries to keep going. And a third time, this time Balaam's donkey crouches down. So he kneels down to the ground and Balaam strikes his donkey again. He cannot figure out what is going on. And the Torah tells us that it was at this point that then Hashem uncovered Balaam's eyes. So Balaam at this point was able to see what it is that the donkey has been seeing. And what was it? The Torah lets us know that it was an angel of God coming to kill Balaam for going with these men. And so by the donkey of dodging and avoiding and doing these things, the donkey saved Balaam's life. And so after this happens, Balaam continues on this journey towards trying to help Balak curse the Jewish people. And he tells Balak, build 7 altars, and then I will see if God comes to me and I will be able to curse the Jewish people. So he does that the first time. And the first time he does this, what comes out of his mouth, this prophecy, is a blessing, not a curse to the Jewish people. And that's kind of annoying to Balak, who hired him to curse the Jewish people, but Balaam again reminds him, I can only say what God tells me to say. So the second time he tells Balak, build 7 altars, and I will again see how this goes. And once again, he blesses the Jewish people instead of cursing them. And again, a third time this happens, and he says, build 7 altars, and I will see what happens. But what's different about this interaction is the Torah tells us, it says, Balaam raised his eyes and saw Israel. And in this instance, what was different is that Balaam went ahead and he composed his own blessing. He composed his own beautiful blessing to the Jewish people after being able to see them. And I thought of a really interesting comparison, a really interesting connection between these two stories. Of the 3 times the donkey gets struck and is trying to prove this point to Balaam, who's not seeing it, and is just doing the same activity over and over again. And also with Balak and Balaam continuing to build these altars, 3 altars, even though the first time it was a blessing, not a curse, the second time it was a blessing, not a curse, and the third time it was a blessing, not a curse. What I think is really interesting about that is we in our lives have those exact things. We have those moments when we absolutely are just continuing patterns in our lives that are not working for us. We can do it once, we can do it twice, we can do it a third time, and each time it's not working and we're getting the same results. But in both of those stories, it says that Balaam's eyes were opened. The first time, they were open to being able to see this angel of God. The second time, they were open to be able to actually see these Jewish people that he's trying to curse for Balak. His eyes were finally opened, and he was able to see that what he was doing maybe wasn't right, and what he was doing, he needed to make a change, and he did. And for us in our lives, we also have to find a way to open our eyes. We have to find a way to recognize these patterns, these habits, these situations that we keep putting ourselves in that are not serving us, that are not advancing us in our life, that are not bringing us to a better point, a better destination, and that are delivering the same results. And we need to resolve to make a change, to do something different, to open our eyes and to change these habits and these patterns so that we can stop having these donkey altar type moments where we're just doing the same exact thing over and over again and it's producing the same results. How can we expect something to change? So I think that's a really amazing lesson that we can learn from this week's Parsha. I wish you all a wonderful week and a Shabbat Shalom, and I look forward to speaking with you next time.